The cold evening wind was blowing softly through the streets of Lagos, carrying with it the first drops of the rainy season. At the old bus stop near Victoria Island, a young woman sat alone on the concrete bench, her thin wrapper pulled tight around her shoulders. Her name was Adoni, and she was 23 years old, though life had made her look much older. Adoni had been living on the streets for almost 6 months now. She had lost her job at the small restaurant in Surale when the owner could no longer afford to pay his workers. Her small savings had run out quickly, and with no family to turn to in Lagos, she found herself moving from one bus stop to another, seeking shelter wherever she could find it. The evening was getting darker, and the street lights were beginning to flicker on one by one. Adoni watched as people hurried past her, some going home from their work, others rushing to catch the last buses of the day. She pulled her worn sandals closer to her feet and tried to make herself smaller on the bench, hoping that the security guards would not come to chase her away tonight. As she sat there, lost in her thoughts about where she would find her next meal, she heard the sound of small footsteps approaching. Looking up, she saw a little girl walking slowly toward the bus stop. The child could not have been more than 5 years old, and she was wearing a beautiful red dress with white flowers on it. Her hair was neatly braided with colorful beads, and she carried a small bag in her hand. The little girl's name was Kemi, and she lived with her father in a big house not far from the bus stop. Her father, Mr. Adibeo, worked long hours at his office in the city center, and most evenings, Kemi would play alone in their large compound while he finished his work. Tonight, she had wandered out of the gate where the security guard was not watching, curious about the world beyond their high walls. Kemi stopped a few feet away from Adoni and stared at her with wide, innocent eyes. She tilted her head to one side, the way children do when they are trying to understand something new. Adoni felt uncomfortable under the child's gaze and looked away, not wanting to frighten her. "Hello," Kemi said in her small, clear voice. "Why are you sitting here in the cold?" Adoni was surprised. Most people who saw her sitting at bus stops would walk quickly past, avoiding eye contact. But this little girl was speaking to her as if she were just another person, not someone to be feared or ignored. "I am waiting," Adoni replied softly, not wanting to explain the full truth to such a young child. "Waiting for what?" Kemi asked, taking a step closer. She seemed genuinely curious, without any of the judgment that Adoni was used to seeing in adult faces. For the morning," Adoni said, which was not entirely untrue. She was always waiting for the morning, hoping that each new day might bring something better. Kemi nodded as if this made perfect sense to her. She walked closer and sat down on the bench beside Adoni, setting her small bag between them. The gesture was so natural and trusting that Adoni felt a warmth in her chest that she had not experienced in months. "Are you hungry?" Kemi asked, opening her bag. Inside were some biscuits and a small bottle of juice that her house help had packed for her earlier that day. "I have food." Adoni's stomach had been empty for most of the day, but she shook her head. "You should eat your food, small one. You are still growing." "But I am not very hungry," Kemi said, taking out one of the biscuits. "And my daddy always says that sharing food makes it taste better." She broke the biscuit in half and offered one piece to Adoni. The kindness of this simple gesture nearly brought tears to Adoni's eyes. She accepted the small piece of biscuit and ate it slowly, trying to make it last. It was the first food she had tasted that day, and it seemed like the most delicious thing in the world. They sat together in comfortable silence for a while, sharing the biscuits and watching the evening traffic. Kemi swung her little legs back and forth from the bench, humming a song that Adoni recognized from her own childhood. "What is your name?" Kemi asked suddenly. "Adoni." "What is yours?" "Kemi." "Do you live here at this bus stop, Sister Adoni?" The question was asked with such innocent directness that Adoni found herself answering honestly. "Yes, little one. I live here sometimes." "Where is your family?" Kemi asked, her voice full of concern. "I have no family in Lagos," Adoni said quietly. "My family is in my village, very far from here." Kemi was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Then she looked up at Adoni with her bright eyes and said something that would change both their lives forever. "You need a home," Kemi said simply. "And I need a mommy." Adoni felt her heart stop for a moment. What do you mean, small one? My mommy went to heaven when I was very small, Kemi explained, her voice matter-of-fact but with a hint of sadness. Daddy tries to take care of me, but he is always working. Sometimes I get very lonely in our big house. Maybe you could come and live with us. Then you would have a home, and I would have someone to talk to. The suggestion was so innocent, so pure in its logic, that Adoni did not know how to respond. She looked at this little girl who was offering to solve both their problems with the simple wisdom of a child's heart. Kemi, my dear, Adoni said gently, life is not that simple. Your father would not want a stranger in his house. But you are not a stranger anymore, Kemi said firmly. You are Sister Adoni, and you shared biscuits with me. Daddy always says that people who share food are friends. At that moment, they heard a man's voice calling urgently from down the street. Kemi. Kemi, where are you? That is my daddy, Kemi said, standing up from the bench. She turned to Adoni and took her hand. Come and meet him. I will tell him about you. Before Adoni could protest, a tall man in a business suit came running toward them, his face filled with worry and relief. This was Mr. Adebayo, and when he saw his daughter holding hands with a young woman at the bus stop, his expression became cautious. Kemi, what are you doing here? I was so worried when I could not find you, he said, reaching out to take his daughter's hand. Daddy, this is Sister Adoni, Kemi announced proudly. She shared her waiting time with me, and I shared my biscuits with her. She needs a home, and I need a mommy. Can she come live with us? Mr. Adebayo looked from his daughter to Adoni, trying to understand the situation. He saw a young woman who was clearly in difficult circumstances, but he also saw kindness in her eyes and noticed how gentle she had been with his daughter. Kemi, you cannot just invite people to live in our house, he said carefully. Why not? Kemi asked with the logic that only children possess. We have many empty rooms, and Sister Adoni is nice. She made sure I ate my food first before she ate hers. Adoni stood up from the bench, feeling embarrassed. Sir, I am sorry. Your daughter is very kind, but I did not ask her for anything. She just came and sat with me. Mr. Adebayo studied Adoni's face and heard the sincerity in her voice. He had been struggling to balance his work and caring for Kemi since his wife died 2 years ago. The house help could only do so much, and he knew that Kemi was often lonely. What is your situation? He asked Adoni directly. Adoni told him honestly about losing her job and having nowhere to go. She spoke about her education and her experience working in restaurants. She did not ask for anything, just explained her circumstances. Mr. Adebayo listened carefully, and when she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he looked at his daughter, who was watching him with hopeful eyes, and then back at Adoni. Perhaps, he said slowly, we could arrange something. I need someone trustworthy to help with Kemi and the household. If you are willing to work, there could be a place for you in our home. Kemi clapped her hands with joy, and Adoni felt tears of gratitude flowing down her cheeks. Sometimes, she thought, the most unexpected solutions come from the most innocent hearts. From that evening forward, Adoni became part of the Adebayo family. She cared for Kemi like her own daughter, and in return, she found not just a home, but a purpose and a family she had never expected. And Kemi finally had someone who was there just for her, someone who understood that sometimes the best conversations happen while sharing biscuits at a bus stop on a cold evening.